I have kind of settled on a style, and so I can kind of curate all of my interests to kind of meet the style that I'm kind of going for, you know. And I think at this point, like I'm just this like I'm a '90s kid, man. You know, I was born in the '90s. I got to experience life before technology took over, and then I got to experience life when technology did take over, and so I kind of can exist in both worlds.
Welcome to the Flying Fruit Bowl, a platform dedicated to the discussion and exploration of art and the creative process. And today's episode is the second part of a two-part conversation with the amazing Niko Evermore. If you haven't heard the first part, please listen to last week's episode before continuing. Thank you very much. As well as shooting his own work, Niko is a huge advocate for community. He runs 2 Instagram pages, Nightfall and Blues Day, with the intention of supporting both upcoming and highly revered artists in the photographic community. It's hard to determine if that comes across, though, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's subjective, you know, because all art is, you know, some people will get it and some people won't. And that's totally cool. I mean, at the end of the day, like, I'm putting it out there for the people to see it, and how they feel about it, it's going to be based off their own experience. Most of the time I post stuff that made me feel something, because like I told you earlier, like, it's my digital diary first. And so it's a place that I can go to and escape into for a minute. Like, oh, yeah, I remember when my life was like this, and I was living in Hawaii, or when I was living in New York, or when I used to look like this and now I look like this. It's like, it's cool. It's like a little time capsule in a way for me, you know, and it always will be. I mean, the world will continue to change as we get older, and, you know, it might look a lot different. We might not have power lines anymore, you know, in the future, because technology will be there, and you won't ever be able to get that shot again of the shoes dangling off the line, you know, or like that old, you know, farm building that's, you know, practically falling apart. Like, they might demolish that next year. You might miss out on it, you know. And so it's cool to capture little snippets of the world in its present moment, but even try to make it look older than what it is, or even newer than what it is, because, you know, you can go both directions with it. You can make things look really old timey, or you can make it look really futuristic and like cyberpunk. And I'm attracted to both worlds personally. Like, I love cyberpunk aesthetics, but I also really, really love like old world and like abandoned stuff, like stuff that's been forgotten or left behind. And it's just there for you to capture if you are in the right place, the right time for it, you know?
So, okay, let's kind of get into your creative process. Are there any particular routines that help you focus on your art?
Not entirely. You know, when I do a photo shoot, I'm not somebody that'll go straight home and edit the pictures. I'll usually wait a day or two, and then I'll start editing and everything. I would say for me, the only thing I could think of in terms of a routine is, you know, when I have a collection of photos, I'll just pick out the ones that I really like first, and then I'll put them in an album, and then I'll go away for a day. I'll come back, slim it down even more if I need to, or even just look through all of them one more time and make sure I didn't miss any, you know, because you can get fried looking at the same kind of image. You know, like, and I'm somebody too, like, there's some shoots I do where you know, it's on drive mode, and it's just, you know, rapid fire shots, and they all look pretty much the same, but the focus, I'm trying to find the one that has the best focus, or has the best, like, the best detail, and has the best shape. You know, I work with a lot of like flow artists that do like silks and fans and stuff like that. So, and like they wear like long dresses and stuff. So getting the fabric to look the way that I want it to look when it's flowing in the wind outside or something, it's really important too. And so, you know, but I take my time with that. And then, you know, I'll go through and start editing. I'll usually pick my favorite picture out of the shoot, and I'll edit that one first. And then I'll kind of use that edit as the base for how I want to edit the rest of them. And then sometimes I'll even pick out different edits. Like, I'll do a cool edit, and then I'll do a warm edit, and then I'll do like a black and white edit. So there's options, you know, but that's you know, that's if I'm feeling extra generous with my time. But yeah, as far as routines go, I don't really have one in terms of like going out and shooting. If I have some free time and I'm in the mood, I'll do it. Or if I'm just out doing like running errands or something and I see something cool, I'll just whip out my phone, or I'll have my camera on me and I'll just drop it in. But that's just kind of where I'm at right now with, living out here in Texas and working a lot. When I was in Portland, it was kind of like okay, once a week, like I'm going to go out and take photos. Like I would make myself go out and do that no matter what the weather was. And that was really nice. But I kind of do a lot of my photography right now based on like my own experiences and what I'm out doing. Like if I'm going, somewhere interesting, or if I'm like making a trip to the beach or something like that. So yeah, but I think once I'm a little bit more business oriented with it, and I'm making, reservations to like have shoots with people, like it'll be a little easier for me to like have that routine down, because I'll have commitments that I need to meet. I'll have like a 2-week period to get people their pictures back or whatever. So yeah, but right now there's not much of a routine for me. I just kind of whip out my phone and camera for whatever feels interesting. Usually if there's a storm rolling in, I'll like take my camera out to my balcony and try to capture some lightning and stuff like that. That's kind of been the routine lately, because there's not much else to photograph right now, or at least to my accessibility. I have to put in a little extra effort to go out and take the shots I want to out here. But I'm getting into doing more of that, now that I'm freeing up a little bit more of my time, making time for it.
But that goes back to what we were saying earlier about like, just because you don't have what you want doesn't mean you can't create with what you have.
Oh, there's so much cool things to take pictures of out here. There's so many cool museums and arts districts. Like this is a little hidden playground out here. I mean, even in the suburb part that I live in, like there's cool, like shots, there's like all sorts of little hidden nooks and crannies and little places to be discovered. So it's just a matter of making the time for it. And that's just something I haven't done a lot of. So need to do more of that.
Yeah, but that will come ironically within time, because obviously you're working, you're busy, you have a life. The problem is that with art, like being a full-time artist and being a professional artist is a full-time job, which means you need to put the time in. And
Right.
if you're not at the point where you can do that, then you shouldn't beat yourself up because you can't put the time in. Like you're busy, you have other responsibilities, you're busy.
Right.
And actually at the minute, I keep saying at the minute, or like recently, it's something else that's really on my mind in terms of like, why is there such a need for people to need to be full-time artists? Why can't we just be happy with being part-time? Because I think at the end of the day, not everyone has accessibility to be able to sit in a studio and create all day, or have the accessibility to go out and shoot all day.
Right.
And sometimes that's going to stifle you because you're constantly involved in that world. You have no break from that. And then you're relying upon that to pay your bills. So therefore you have to create whether you want to or not.
Exactly. And then on top of that too, like my life, personally, like my work-life balance sucks. Like I literally have at my job 40 hours a week if I want to, survive. And so that kind of cuts into a lot of it. And, even though it's an 8-hour shift, it's actually a 9-hour shift after lunches. And then you add in an extra hour or so of the commute.
Yeah.
So,
of course.
10 hours out of my day, I'm spent doing something for, another company that's not even in the industry that I'm interested in. But, you have to do it because how are you going to afford, that's life. So yeah, if I was a part-time employee and making good money, like I could definitely put a lot more time into my creative endeavors, but that's just not the dice I got right now. And I'm okay with that. I think the goal is to create a business out of this on the side that can eventually replace my day job.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of time. But even then, like I wouldn't want to do it full time, like you said. Like I actually am not a big fan. Like I love the idea of editing, but I hate having to sit down and do it, like and I haven't actually like put in the time to make presets to where I can just one click and then micro adjust everything like I should have, a long time ago. I like to edit every picture kind of individually.
Thanks. I do the same thing. I edit everything completely separately. I don't really think about them necessarily being uniform in that same way. I just don't really have the need. But I think again, those things will come in time, But like at the minute, what I'm really thinking about at the minute is, I talk to a lot of part-time artists and I talk to a lot of full-time artists. I'm trying to think about like, how can I bridge that gap? How can I get the part-time artist talking to the full-time artist and the full-time artist talking to the part-time artist? Because the one question everybody wants to know is, how do you become a full-time artist? And I feel like surely there's somewhere I can bridge that gap and make that conversation happen. Surely. So that's just my.
It's just tough because everyone comes from different, lives, and I'm, for example, like I'm not a trust fund kid. I've had to work. I'm just middle class, man. So, and my parents do, like they're very successful, but successful for the middle class. So they don't have $2,000 trust check to write me every month for me to go do whatever I want to do with it, or put it towards my bills. And then the money I make from my job, I can put towards what I want to do. It's like all of the money I make is already going to something else. And then maybe if I have some left over, I can invest it into, what I want to do creatively, or, anything I want to buy or experience. So that comes from a lot of it. And also too, just willpower. Like I personally have not had the willpower to like say, hey, I am going to do this full time. Like, I'm going to do this full time and still work a full-time job. Like when I get home from work every day, I'm going to go out and do a shoot, or I'm going to book 2 or 3 photo shoots a week and just stay on it. Like I don't have that willpower right now. Maybe in the future I will. But yeah, I'm very much
you're just burning yourself out.
Yeah, and I'm more of a work smart instead of working hard kind of person, like I still do hard work and I like to work hard, but I'd rather work smart if I can. If I can do 1 photo shoot a week and have it pay me,
enough. Yeah.
I'll do a nice quality photo shoot I'll just throw a random number for like $500 instead of doing 2 or 3 photo shoots for $100. Like I'd rather do the one for $5,
So I actually watched a really interesting YouTube video yesterday, and it was actually about content creation. It was how to make $1 million as a content creator. I'll send you the link because I think it's just really interesting for people just to watch generally. And the whole idea was there's this brand strategist. What's the title? He's like a brand strategist. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. Is that the way to say it? Brand strategist? Strategizer? Okay, anyways, there's some dude who I don't know. That sounds unprofessional. So basically, there's this guy called Phil Pallen, and he's like a brand expert or whatever, branding expert. And he was talking about like as a content creator, like the way you make $1 million is you break everything down into different sections. You will have a higher tier, a middle tier, a lower tier, and then they're broken down into a higher tier, middle tier, lower tier. It's actually really, really interesting in terms of like, if you think about it, like you have different price points for different people, and that's what's going to get you money from different directions, from different ways of doing things. As you just said about, rather than doing two shoots for $250, you'll do one for $500. But then also you might offer some other service where it's a little bit less money, but it's going to be less work. I think that's really maybe like the idea of like diversifying the way in which you make money is, I think, maybe what people should be thinking about in terms of like putting all your eggs in one basket. Because as he said, and it's true, like nobody makes £1 million rarely from one income.
Right.
So something to think about.
And like the different styles of photography I'm interested in, like I was mentioning earlier, like infrared and stuff, that's something unique I can offer to people that, like there's not a lot of photographers in my area that will shoot infrared. So if somebody wants to have that experience, they know who to go to, and that's something that I can offer them. Or like, if I, finally decide to buy a better film camera, I can offer, film packages, stuff like that. Like from a business standpoint, like I love that idea, like breaking it down into tiers, like a 1 hour photo shoot versus a 3 hour or a half day photo shoot, all sorts of little like logical and like analytical things like that. I definitely consider, and I think once I'm finally ready to fully like monetize my photography, and I think a part of me too is just kind of like I'm not fully ready to like take it on as a business yet either. Like I'm still really passionate about it as just like a form of art and expression, and I think I'm just overcoming a few more hurdles before I'm ready to be like, okay, let me make this like a job too. Because once it starts to feel like a job, the energy around it changes a little. I mean, I'm still
absolutely
about it and stuff, but like, and I'm the type of photographer too. Like I'll shoot, situations that maybe I normally wouldn't, but most of the time I'm only wanting to take business with something that aligns with my kind of work, it's just like for my time and what I'm interested in, like I just think it's worth it more for me, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Like I'll do family portraits and edit them very like, nice and stuff. But if I can find a really cool like alternative family that wants to do something really creative and like different with their kids or with, like a couple or something, I'll be much more like interested in jumping on that. Like if I had two families taking up a time slot and one of them was just a really simple like portrait session and maybe they were wanting to pay me more, I'd rather take the family that would pay me a little less but do something a little bit more creative, because like that appeals to me, and I want to maintain that consistency. Like I want to be a consistent photographer for sure, but I also want my style to be consistent too. I want to stand out, as mine, so I've actually done a few portraits out here and I did find myself editing them in my style and they were actually really happy with it too. So that's kind of cool. And I was like, all right, that's nice, I didn't just do a cliche, touch up edit and just like set the exposure correctly. Like I went in, tweaked the tones a little bit, added a little color grading, made it look a little bit different, and they really appreciated it.
Yeah, that's what you want. You want to put your stamp on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how often do you actually show like the before and after of your work?
I haven't yet. I want to get into that part, finally getting into video content. I've been sitting on videos for months now and I'm just kind of getting them edited and curated. And a lot of the editing I do is just color right now because I'm not really good at cutting videos up and then transitions. Like I'm still learning that aspect of it. I'm very much a noob when it comes to video editing. I can shoot video really well. Like I used to have a stabilizer and stuff, and everything. I was really into it and used to do really nice transitions, but just the editing part of it, I just never took the time to like learn. So that's something I kind of have to educate myself on first before I can like dive into it full time. But yeah, I like the idea of before and afters. It's so cool to see like what a picture was and then what it's become. I'm also a little weary of it sometimes though, because criticism can be a little jarring from more like entitled people, I guess, that aren't really passionate about editing photos. But I don't care about what they think, But at the same time, it still runs through my mind like, oh, do I really want to, But the more I sit with it, the more I'm like, you know what? A lot more people are also expressing an interest in knowing like how I got to the edit that I did. So it'd be cool to show them the process. And there's a few artists I follow on Instagram that do like their before and afters, and it's just really interesting. I'm like, wow, I didn't know you could do all that with Lightroom. It's helped me learn some new things.
The thing that I'm really interested in nowadays with art in general is the pre-production. I feel like on Instagram, we see the final image so often. We never actually understand how the artist gets to that final image. But we never understand like the thoughts, the ideas, the concepts, the kind of drive, the ambition. Like we don't really see any of that. And I'm kind of like, before and after is a one good way to do that. But I think also, I personally would love to have photographers have a YouTube channel where they literally just sit down with an image and talk about the image.
I love that stuff, man. I love watching videos like that, especially, man. Like just watching there's a few there's a creator I follow. He's kind of one of those hybrid creators. He does like photography but then does digital, and he'll just like live stream on Twitch. His name's Ty Died. I think you might know him.
I don't know his work, yes.
Amazing. But yeah, he'll just live stream on Twitch, and I just sat in on one of his live streams a couple weeks ago for like an hour or two and just watched how he puts in all the little neon things that he does and how he animates it, and I was like blown away because like the first picture was just like still really good but simple, and how he was able to transform it into something like otherworldly, which he does with all of his images. Or I guess they, because I think he's a he they. I'm not too keen on their pronouns, but we'll just say they. Like just amazing. I'm just blown away. I'm like, wow. And I didn't think I'd be so entranced for like 2 hours just watching a person just edit their photos. But it was super cool. And it's, for I would say the past 12 years now, I've always wanted to do YouTube. Like it was my dream when I was in high school to be a YouTuber. And back then it was for gaming because I was a big gamer. But I'm always like, when I'm home alone and I'm pacing around the house and cleaning and stuff, like I'm thinking about I'm even practicing the way I would like talk if I was vlogging or like doing a YouTube video. And I'm getting like so close to wanting to like do that. And definitely doing like live photo edits is some video ideas that I've had as well. I think it's super cool and just like, you know, natural. It's laid back, you could throw some music on and just kind of, have a live chat going and, it's cool. I like that.
So that's interesting. I actually didn't know he did live streams. I didn't know he did that. I've only just seen his static work. I haven't seen any of his animations. I've only just seen his static work because his work is cool. But like that kind of makes me think. Now you said that. Like I wonder if, in contrast to Reels and to TikTok, if people are kind of being a bit more engaged with long form content nowadays, because I feel like sitting there watching somebody create something, you feel like you're part of that journey.
Right.
And I'm kind of just thinking like that might be why people are actually more engaged with like watching a live stream or watching people do stuff in real time. Because back in the day, that you couldn't do that. That was like practically impossible.
Right.
But that's actually a really good kind of just consideration. And it actually makes me think I should do more live streams. No, it's something I've thought about. Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to share some ideas I've got with you. I'll send you some suggestions and stuff, and I'd love to know your opinion. I think I really value your opinion, and you'll be honest with me and tell me if they're a good idea or not.
Of course.
So let's get into social media. What are your thoughts on social media, and how does it affect your work?
So, as I said earlier, I only really dabble in Instagram these days. I think I used to have a lot. I used to have a Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff, but I found myself being more attracted to like the visual aspects of social media. So at the time, it was mostly Tumblr and Instagram. Tumblr kind of died, and I also just didn't have a lot of time to like make my mood board on there anymore. Yeah. So I drifted over to Instagram, and when I jumped on Instagram a little bit more seriously was when I moved to Hawaii. I had a blast. It was so fun. I'm pretty disappointed with the direction that Instagram especially has gone. It used to be catered to like photographers, and it gave smaller creators a chance to have their work seen without having to pay for an exhibition or, invest a lot of money or resources into, getting stuff printed or going to markets and trying to sell them at like a fleet. I love all of that too, but the accessibility that Instagram offered when it first came out was amazing. And then they introduced algorithms, and I feel like after that, everything kind of like, it's the whole social media saying like, if the product is free, you're the product, and I feel like a lot of that has kind of become the main like thing for it these days. So I've had this weird relationship with it. Like I love Instagram for the social aspects. I've made some great connections. Like I've said, I get to throw my art up there, lay it out how I want to, and it's fun. But on the flip side of it, like if I wanted to, be a content creator full time, like it's so hard nowadays, and they want you to pay all this money for ads, and then even then you pay for ads, and these, doesn't really do much because you're not, a celebrity or you're not in with the celebrities, or it's become a huge like social class issue, I feel like too, and if you're rich and you hang out with rich people, those rich people can help you meet other rich people that can make you successful. But I feel like somebody like me that doesn't hang out with those kinds of people on the regular, it's a little bit more extra energy on my end to like meet those kinds of people and be accepted into that kind of community. So I feel like that's kind of taken a weird turn. I never would have thought the social media would have gone this direction, and not just social media, but like even YouTube, it's changed a lot, and yes. That's partially why I haven't started doing YouTube yet. Cause I'm at the point where I don't even care to make money on YouTube. I just want to make videos because it's fun and it's entertaining, and that's kind of where I'm at with Instagram too these days. I like it for what it is. I see the positive aspects of it, but I also can see where it has influenced a lot of like my obstacles or like hesitation to maybe be more monetized or more professional. Like I could have done so many things differently if I didn't try to just curate for, social media. And like I could have a website already. I could have my whole business. But I made the choices I made with it, and I'm at peace with it. Like I'm happy with it, but it's definitely gotten a lot harder to want to create for social media. And I feel like the whole community, like most Instagram users these days, kind of are feeling that burnt out. It's like, what's the point of posting if no one's going to see it? But then I'm also like, well, just post it because you want to post it. Don't worry about the numbers. But it still does suck to like, put a lot of time and energy into something, and then you have like, like I have almost 6,000 followers, and only 10% of them will see it. Like, we'll even see the post, because of people either aren't online anymore, or Instagram like restricts who sees your content unless it gets a certain amount of likes in the first hour or whatever. A lot of that heady stuff that I'm not a big fan of, it's kind of tainted it a little bit in a way. But I'm staying optimistic. I'm kind of treating it, part of me growing up and maturing too is like how I treat, the things that I put my time into. And these days, like, I'm just having fun with it. I don't care to have the most aesthetically pleasing photo anymore. I'm not trying to sell a lifestyle that's unrealistic. I'm not trying to, only post the highlights of my life. I just post pictures that make me feel something and hope that other people feel it too. And kind of go from there, try not to stress too much about the numbers. It's taken me a long time to get there, but I'm at the point where I just don't care. Like, I have really cool connections, and they see my photos, and they, interact with me and chat with me. So that's what really matters for me, So I mean, maybe I'd feel differently if I was a larger creator already, and I had, thousands and thousands of messages that, I wouldn't have time for, I'd have to figure out how to navigate that. But I don't necessarily want to be like famous, but I also would like to have some sort of influence, that makes sense.
You want to be known for doing something well, not because
Right.
you've got the numbers behind you to say that you're quote unquote good at doing something that you don't know if you're good at doing.
Right. I want the credit. I want the credibility outside of myself, because like I can give myself credit. Like, yeah, I work hard, I do work pretty hard to create what I create, but it would also be super great to have the right kind of credible sources that could open up other doors for me to eventually, like I was telling you earlier, like make that a job instead of a job that I don't really want to work, for example.
Oh no, yeah. That's the thing. Like, you'd be surprised. There's actually an artist yesterday, actually. I'm not gonna say her name because I don't know how comfortable should be with me saying that, but like she actually had an ask me anything, and it was like ask any question. I asked the icebreaker question I asked everybody, which is, what is the biggest challenge of being an artist? I asked that to anybody I meet in person or online. It's the best question to ask any artist because everyone's gonna have a different answer and you can relate. Would highly advise anybody to use that. If you don't know how to approach an artist that you really like, ask them that question. Guarantee it will get you talking. And she was saying, oh, the biggest challenge is that I don't do this full time, and I was like, wait, you don't do this full time? And I was just like, you look like you do it full time. It appears that you do it full time. Like I was like, I sent her a voice message earlier. Actually, I was like, I'm shocked you do not do this full time because you come across like you do, and it seems like you do. And she was actually really interesting because she was like, oh, I don't actually care about doing it full time. It's not really my interest. I teach. I've got other hobbies. I've got other interests. I've got family. And I was like, it's so interesting that we all aspire to have a career, a creative career, without thinking that that might not be what your life is that might not be what you're destined for. Like, and that's not a bad thing. Like, it will give you the time to focus on other things. Because I just feel like if you put your entire life, if you focus on one thing for your entire life, like, and that thing falls apart, you'll have nothing. And the creative industry is so fickle. Like, what's great tomorrow will not be the next day. You could be creating NFTs and making millions of pounds one day, and the next day no one is going to care, and no one's going to purchase work from you. And I think, yeah, okay, obviously it works for a lot of people. There are a lot of really cool artists who work full time, and they're amazingly great artists. But what I'm always interested in is like, how do people like justify kind of the time and effort they're spending on something that's so uncertain? I don't know. Like, I find
that's the beauty of art, though. The whole starving
yeah.
art, the whole starving artist theory, and everything. I think that's what makes it most exciting for me, is like the mystery of it and the unknown. And I'm just somebody that's really into that. Like, as much as I like to have like my routines and like have plans and like kind of know what I'm getting myself into, the other part of me really is attracted to like the mystery of it and not really knowing what could happen, but just doing it, like the risk. That's like all part of the human experience for me, is like taking those risks and seeing if it was worth it. And similar to said artist that you were just talking about, I have a lot of other interests too. And I've tried all kinds of, I was pursuing a music career for a minute. I was pursuing a psychology degree. I was pursuing a theater, avenue at some point. Like, I've tried all these different things, and I still have a lot of passion for all of them. But photography for me and video has just been something that, like, it is so accessible and so easy. Like, I don't have to put a lot of effort to take a photo, unless I like, do put on like a really good production or something. Playing music and stuff, like, I really have to like be at the space where I have the instrument, and then I have to make sure nobody's home because I play the drums. So, there's just a lot more like there was just factors that had to be perfect in order for me to pursue that. And then, of course, similar to any art industry, the music industry, like, you're not gonna make it. Like most bands aren't gonna make it. You do it because it's fun, and I just kind of got to a place where this is fun, but I'd rather put my energy into something else. So I tried that, and then, but yeah, photography has been that constant for me since I started doing it, where like, even if I'm not taking photos, I've always just been interested in photos, and maybe I'm just hardwired to like look at photography now on social media because I've been doing it for so many years. But I enjoy it. It brings a bit of peace to my mind. Like, some people read books. I like to look at photos at night before I go to bed, because it gives me, almost influences some pretty cool dreams and stuff too.
A photographer that I have spoken to on occasion, who I need to really support more, is JJ Brandon. I don't know if you know his work.
Love Brandon. He is awesome.
Such a nice guy.
He's one of the first accounts that I really started following when I got into like that moody, dark, cinematic kind of vibe. So yeah, Brandon is awesome.
So lovely. I haven't really spoken to him properly yet, like in terms of like how I speak to you or how I speak to a lot of the photographers. Yeah. I actually sent him some stickers ages ago. So he's got some cool stickers, which are like
nice
stickers, which is cool. But we were talking a while ago about kind of, because he shares a lot of work as well. Actually, you and him are the reasons that I started creating guides and then started creating the Sunday Spotlight series, because you did guides and I was like, I had no idea this existed. And actually, you two were the reason that I create what I do, which is awesome, because it just shows like, you're influenced by people you influence. It's great. It's like a circle. But we were talking about the idea of like, how do you make sure that you don't ruin your own work by looking at so much other art?
It's taken a lot of discipline, I feel like. I think just where I'm at spiritually, like a lot of the insecurities I have are with myself, but not like with what I create. Like, I'm really proud of what I create. Some days, I'm like, this isn't like a super banger of a photo, but it still evokes an emotion that I'm feeling. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw it up. And when I look at other people's work these days that are like just far, far better than mine in terms of quality and composition, and I'm not ashamed to say that. Like, there's definitely like, I mean, all work is great, and subjective, but like, there are just some people out there that are just incredibly talented, or just like, I'm just like so envious of like, dang, I wish I would have had this scene in those circumstances. Even places I've been before that other people have shot, I'm like, dang, you got there on that day when it was looking like that, and you had this in your subject, and it's just so good. But if anything, I'm just happy. Like, I'm happy that I've, been, either been to that place before and had my own experience, or, it's a new place I haven't been. And I'm like, you know what? I never wanted to go there, but now I do, not just to take a picture, but just to see it. It's super cool. And then, yeah, I also just, I accept that, like, I am where I'm at with my process. Like, I edit on a crappy old pad. shoot on a crop sensor camera. I'm a middle class person. I mean, like so many factors that go into it. Like everybody's journey is going to look different because of the circumstances and the equipment they have, and also just the perception that they have. Everyone sees the world differently, and I don't let it get to me too much anymore. There was a moment where I was upset that, well, it was actually a moment when my camera had gotten stolen from me. So I didn't have a camera for like a year or so. And I was upset because I was having to take pictures on my iPhone, and like, I just couldn't get that depth that I was looking for that you can get it in like an actual camera, So that kind of like was frustrating for a minute, but I just changed my attitude about it, and just like, you know what, a real artist uses the tools they have at their disposal.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There's a huge skill in taking like good iPhone pictures. Like it's a much different kind of feeling, than putting your eye into a viewfinder and holding a camera horizontal, vertically, like pulling up your camera on a phone and having the whole touch screen at your disposal to kind of see what you're doing and stuff. There's a different skill involved with it. And I'm actually really proud that I got to do that for a little bit, just like just be limited to my phone, because it taught me how to take better pictures with my phone. And now when I go out and take pictures with my phone and stuff, like people are like, whoa, how did you get that with your phone? And I'm just like, just practiced, practice,
Yeah. Actually, practice is actually stupidly important. I think that's something that we forget because we kind of expect things to be perfect. I think we all kind of put a little bit too much pressure on ourselves to be great. And you don't need to be great. Like that's the thing. We look at people like, say, for instance, like Henry Film, or people like Todd Hydo, who are, who have had maybe not Henry Film necessarily, but like who have had the accolades and the credibility put behind their work. And we kind of try to match our work with theirs, but we don't think about their history. We don't think how long it's taken them to get there.
Right.
Because Todd Hydo didn't come swinging out the gate with his images that he created. He had to get there. He had to get to a point. He had to establish the reputation he's now got. And I feel like we kind of almost assume, even with social media, we assume like, oh yeah, we can just be an overnight success. When actually, like, no, you can't really. You can get the numbers overnight,
right?
But you can't get the reputation overnight.
Exactly. And even the creators that are really good at being able to get 10,000 followers in their first month of starting a new account, like it's super impressive. That stuff used to bother me. Like, be like, dang, I've been on Instagram for over 10 years and I haven't even got, I'm only halfway to 10K still. But like, I don't, like you said, it's just the numbers. And like at the end of the day, like I'm proud of the connections that I've made on the platform, and they're all unique. I'm not just some random photographer to these people. Like I actually have conversations and we talk about common interests, or talk about life, and that's what it's really about for me, and that's what makes it all like worth it. And I when I think about that aspect of it, I kind of forget about the comparison and the competitiveness, and it actually makes me more like happy to see people's great creations and see their success, because I'm like, shoot, if they can do it, so can I just gotta keep staying optimistic and be supportive. Like the energy you put into it is the energy you'll get back. So if I'm going it all negative and like kind of entitled, then that's the kind of reaction I'll get. And I've noticed since I've been a lot more humble on like interacting with people, responding to my comments, responding to my DMs of just people I don't even know, just it's gotten me a lot more of a appreciation, and people stick around a lot longer because they're like, oh, this is a real person, and this person actually cares about me supporting them, and I think that's really important. No matter how big you are. Like I feel like if I'm as big as Henry Film, someday, and I'm getting 400 or 500 comments on a picture, 400 or 500 comments is going to turn into 1,000, because I'd want to respond to every single one of them saying thank you. I mean, that would take a lot of time. I would probably have to dedicate like 3 hours out of my evening to do that. But I would do it because, I'm really appreciative of the support, like you don't have to like my photo. You don't have to share it. You don't have to comment it. You're choosing, and if you choose to, then I think that's really cool. You're choosing me, you know, like that's really cool, you know.
And I think the great thing is that you can tell very quickly who's interested in your work because, you know, the way you engage with people and people engage with you. Like what I've definitely found is that like when you message somebody or somebody messages you and it becomes, you know, a bit more of a conversation as opposed to just being like, oh, I like this, I like that, I like this. Or, it's like, because people liking posts are great. But I'm always like, it's where it's for me, it's like it's in the DMs that really count. If people really like your work, they will tell you. And if they tell you, then you know they're people you want to talk to. Or, it's just, I don't know. I feel like as I've done the flying football for, I don't know how long it's been now, it's probably been about 2.5 years, maybe, like consistently. I've just realized like the way I engage with people is very intentional, but like from the best place possible. And I feel like we don't see enough of that on social media where it's like, we're not like, I don't contact people because they're going to get me more views and more likes.
Right.
I contact people that I actually like everybody I invite because I like their work. Like I never look at numbers. And it's funny because I had an interview a long time ago now. There's probably interview number 3 with a really cool artist called Tom Loner. He does really, really great, just really, really great characters, has a really cool style. I saw his work today. He's just a really great guy, super extroverted, super lovely. And I sent his work to Laurie, who obviously I keep mentioning because she's a good friend. And she said to me, she was like, wow, he's got 20K followers. How did you reach out to him? And I said, the same way I reached out to you. I literally messaged him. And he said, yes. Like I don't treat people like, I said, I don't know how many followers he has because I don't look at people's follower accounts. I'm not,
Right.
that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in people's work. I look at people's work and be like, I think that person has something to say, or like, oh, I want to. It's very selfish. I choose people because I want to ask them something about their work. That's why I do it. And I feel like who your audience is because they reach out to you, and they're willing to extend that conversation. They're willing to actually talk about things. They're not just going to like something and move on. I think that's where you know where your audience lies.
Right. And even the people that do, like, hey, thanks for coming by.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the whole part of the game. But
Right.
I think it's just like it's nice having people who care that a bit more, who actually are curious, who are kind of willing to invest their time into you. Yeah, they might not be buying your prints because they might not be able to afford it, but they're still trying to understand you in a way. And I think as an artist, you want to be understood.
Yeah, and what you were saying about just being authentic with your engagement, like, and authentic with your experience on a platform such as Instagram, like that's really changed my whole experience on the platform in general. Like I don't follow a lot of people. I really only follow people that I consistently want to see, their work like every single time. And so I'm really picky and selective about who I follow. And that's actually helped me to like enjoy the platform because I'm not just seeing a bunch of randomness anymore. I've unfollowed a lot of personal people in my life too because I just like love you and we can still talk, but I don't really care stuff on my home feed, and I have a whole explore feed to find new people, and I'm actually on the explore feed all the time. Like I'm on my home feed a lot, but like I'm always on explore, finding new people, interacting with accounts, discovering new people. It's really awesome. But because I've curated my homepage the way that I have, it's made the experience a lot more positive for me because I don't feel like I'm wasting time. I'm seeing content that I want to see.
Yeah, that's super important.
Yeah, I'm communicating with artists that I want to communicate with or that I already have a connection with. And then in turn, that helps me meet newer artists that I can eventually communicate with and stuff too. So, I think curation, both from a posting standpoint and from a viewing standpoint, is very important. So that way you don't get burnt out on the platform because Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, it's gotten very like political and like with ads and all the advertisements and the promoting and all this stuff, and it's overwhelming. Like I can only scroll through about 10 minutes of Instagram before I'm ready to hop off and not get back on for another couple hours, whereas back in the day when there wasn't any ads or any of that stuff, you could literally scroll for an hour. You get sucked into it, but not because it's sucking your soul out, but because you're just like you're seeing everything you want to see. So it's changed a lot with all of the new algorithms and stuff, but I found a way for me personally to like enjoy the experience, and that's by just following people that I want to follow. And I go through probably once a month and unfollow people that maybe just don't serve me anymore, or
Yeah.
maybe not that often anymore, because I already don't follow that many people, but I keep it that way so my experience on the platform is enjoyable. Otherwise, I won't engage with anybody, and then nobody will engage with me, and then it's like, well, what's the point? Might as well not program anymore, right? So you kind of have to figure out how to discipline yourself to enjoy the platform, because at the end of the day, like, we're not going to be able to change anything. Like, it's too far gone at this point. Facebook has turned it into what it is now, and just gotta adapt or die.
That's very true. I like that. That's a great phrase. It's a very great phrase. There's only about another like 10 or so questions, probably not even that, probably more like 6 or so, just so you're aware. Is what are the sacrifices of being an artist?
I would say that's a good one, because that can go shallow or deep. I would say the sacrifice is, well, first off, is just being an artist. Like the starving artist theory that I was mentioning earlier. Just like you have to be okay with doing it for free. Like you have to be okay with the idea of it being free, not just like free as in like you're offering your services for free, but it should feel freeing to you as well, like, so, but that's tough because, not everybody, it's not the average person's forte. I mean, I would say most people appreciate art, but a lot of people aren't going to like time or energy into art. It takes artists or people that appreciate art to do that. And the world that we live in nowadays, like, art, I feel like definitely gets more and more belittled and kind of swept under the rug, because I won't go into a bunch of conspiracy theories, but a lot of the dominators of the world are trying to repress that, because art is expression and expression is freedom, and freedom, you can't control freedom.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a big sacrifice, like, for example, I can't just like call out of work one day and say, hey, I got this really amazing photo shoot that I can't miss. I'm not going to be at work today. They're going to be like, you're fired.
Yeah, of course.
It'd be amazing. But like, art isn't really taken seriously on that level unless you're in the industry itself. So that's kind of sacrificing. Another thing that I can think of is just sacrificing the time to invest into your creative self. Like, it's taken me a long, long, long time to kind of get to where I am, like what I enjoy taking pictures of and the style that I've developed, and like what's fascinating to me, and what my type is as far as entertainment and art goes. I pretty much like everything, music, movies, and all sorts of genres, but it took a lot of time. I had to watch a lot of movies that maybe I didn't like to know that I don't really like that kind of movie, or I had to listen to music I didn't like for me to be like, yeah, that's not really, that's like time wasted, but it wasn't, because, you discover more about yourself in the process. And yeah, money has been a bit of a sacrifice. I've had to sacrifice a lot of money to invest in the equipment I have, and now it's like all outdated, and I'm gonna have to invest more money into getting this stuff to keep me relevant. I mean that partially, of course. I think you can create amazing stuff with outdated stuff nonetheless, and there's even a whole community for that. There's literally people that will take pictures on a 2007 Razor phone and they blows up. So, yeah, I mean, there's a community for it all, but yeah, not much sacrifice that I can think of other than just like my identity. Like, I'm an artist, I present myself as this artist, and that only attracts, like I said, the people that are interested in that, so that's the only thing I can really think of in terms of sacrifice off the top of my head right now. I'm sure if I like thought about it more and maybe smoke some weed or something, I could get a little deeper with that answer, but yeah, I enjoy it. It's a great expression for me. It's a great outlet for me. I sacrifice a lot more not doing art than I do doing art, because I have to right now, I have to work and be responsible. So that's kind of the sacrifice of it too, is since it's not something that can sustain me right now, I have to put it on the back burner more times than I'd like to, survive,
So my next question is actually not my question. It's actually from a podcast called Artsy AF by a really cool artist called Andrew Norris. And he asked the question, I was like, this is such a good question. I don't think I actually asked for permission though, but I just took the question anyway. But hey, I'm crediting him, so it should be okay, I guess. Don't sue me. So the question is, how has art changed you over time?
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great question. Yeah, it's made me into this really eclectic character that I am.
That is the best description of yourself.
Yeah, it has definitely helped turn me into this eclectic being that I am. All of the little influences that art has played, whether it's been through music or movies or entertainment, photography, video, all of the above, social media, it's played such a cool role in shaping me into this like artist that I am. And I have so many interests, and I don't think I would have had that if I didn't have the internet at my disposal. And then even before the internet, had parents that supported me being artistic, and friends and family being really supportive and all of that. So it's definitely, it's been such a positive influence on my life, and I will forever be an artist. I mean, even if I decide to not do photography later on down the road, I mean, I don't see that happening. I'll always be taking pictures, but I'll always have some sort of artistic endeavor that I'll be pursuing no matter what, because that's just who I am. It's what I like to do. I'm definitely in that artsy clique, like I'm the family member that does the artsy stuff, and a lot of my family knows that, and they really respect that and admire that, especially with all that I'm doing with it these days. And I'm nowhere near where I'd like to be, but I'm happy with where I am, and there's always something more to strive for, but I'm just appreciating where I'm at now, and looking back at how far I've come and looking ahead of what's to come in the future.
My next question for you is, what does it mean to be a successful artist?
I think it's, if the art that you're creating brings you peace, that's the true success for me. Like if you're at peace with what you're creating, and when I say peace, like you're content with where you are, you're not being overly hard on yourself, you're not putting like the wrong intentions into what you're creating and curating. Like I think a sense of peace is probably the most rewarding thing. Obviously having financial success, but the money is just a tool to get you the things that you want. So it's not really the goal for me. It's just a tool that I can use. With money, I can get more equipment to make my quality more, impressive for myself and for others. And that means a lot to me, because I'm always trying to be a better version of what I already am, So that to me is success. And then just knowing that I've impacted somebody, like, plays a huge role in feeling successful. I don't know if that's necessarily like what success is, but for me, it feels really good to have an impact, just to have somebody like drop in and comment on one of my pictures of what it reminds them of, or just like making them feel something for a moment. Like I live for that. That's what I enjoy, like it's like that feeling after you get done at a concert that you've been looking forward to, and you leave the venue and you're just like, wow, that was incredible. Like that's the feeling I'm going for, So that's the feeling that I like to feel. That's the feeling I would like to evoke,
That's super cool. And I think it's the idea of experience, isn't it? It's the idea of like being attached to something other than just a nice image. It's like having some kind of
Absolutely.
So my next question is a double barrel question. So the first part of the question is, in your opinion, what makes a good piece of art?
So from a subjective point of view, like everything can be considered a good piece of art. But me, what I like atmosphere. I like mood. I like landscapes a lot. Like I love looking at people and stuff.
but there's something about a landscape that's just a little bit more like personal to me, because I've spent a lot of time in nature and I really appreciate it on a deeper and spiritual level. So I'm really drawn to like landscapes and just like planet Earth, even places I haven't been before on planet Earth. It's so amazing. It's like, I cannot wait to go to like Iceland someday. I cannot wait to go to Iceland. Like, that is just like a moody
That'd be
paradise.
so incredible.
I might just move to Iceland. Screw America.
Do it.
There's just
Come over to England.
Yeah, I'll move to Europe, man. Way better benefits. And no,
Iceland's just cold all the time, so don't go to Iceland.
Not a lot of gun violence. I'm down for that.
Absolutely. I mean, wow.
But yeah, that's kind of what I'm drawn to. Anything that's kind of got like a dark edge to it too. I like edgy artwork. I like really dark kind of surrealism. Really creepy kind of like Salvador Dali kind of style, where it's like surreal but also real. And I've always been, I was always that kid that liked going to art museums. And so I've always just kind of had a knack for art to begin with. And that's kind of transmuted into photography now. And I was doing music since I was a little kid. So I'm drawn to pretty much all forms of art, but the moodier, kind of edgier stuff is kind of what's catching my eye these days. It always changes depending on like where I'm at in my life and what I'm doing. Like when I was living in Hawaii, like I lived for tropical and travel photos. Like that's all I liked. Nowadays, I don't like looking at them that much because I get FOMO, and I'm like, dang it, you guys are out in like Cabo swimming with, tiger sharks, and I'm just sitting in my bedroom pretending I was there, but no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, I like the moody stuff right now. It's been making me feel a certain way, and that's kind of why I post a lot of it too on my social platforms, because if it makes me feel something, I'm probably not the only one feeling this, so other people probably feel it too. And yeah.
So the second part of that question is, what was the last image or piece of media that captivated you, and what was it about it that left an impression on you?
Oh, that's a good one. Let me think for a sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me go over to my Instagram for a sec and just see what I got in my saved. I mean, a lot of the stuff I put in my mood boards is definitely, stuff that really makes me feel, really great. You know what? Forget it. Off the top of my head, like I've been really getting into infrared, photography, or like following more infrared photographers. I just think it's so cool to like take a picture of the forest, and instead of the leaves being green, it's like a bright pink or a bright red, because that's how the infrared picks it up. I think it's so freaking cool. Like imagine watching an entire movie shot in infrared. It'd be so
weird.
It'd be so organic, but also so like surreal at the same time, because everything like visually is the same. It's just the colors that aren't, and it would just be so cool. I've been really feeling like I want to convert my camera into getting the infrared sensor on it so I can like do that. I just think it's so cool. Like you can even just take a really boring picture of something and it's still so interesting because it's an infrared, So I've been really feeling that. This photographer that I've been following for about 2 months now, she's based in Portland. She takes just amazing, like just landscape photos of the world, but she started an infrared photography account the other day and I followed it and I've just been like loving it because I'm just like, sweet. I mean, her photography is already amazing. You slap on her infrared stuff too, and it's just like quality. I'll send you her account here in a little bit.
Please do.
Yeah, she's a pretty big creator too. And she's always like responding to my DMs and stuff, like really humble, seems really like laid back. And, it's cool. I dig that. I like when really good photographers are down to like have conversations with photographers that are like inspired by them,
Yeah, it's important. It's important to engage with the people that engage with you. It's important. Absolutely. No matter at what point, at what kind of status you are, or what kind of level in your career you're at, I think it's always important because you're always going to, it's like, a cycle. You're always going to inspire somebody and be inspired. And I think it's important to pass that along, be that kind of artist that you want other people, that you be the artist. Wait, how am I going to say this? So give back the way you want to receive and vice versa. there's always a point in time in which there are people you looked up to that you asked for advice and they gave you advice. You should be the same to other people, because the way you are to other people is the way that other people are to you. I think it's important to remember that.
All about that good karma, man.
Yeah, karma. That's the word for it. So I have a question for you from the last person I interviewed. So I did an interview with this really, really cool artist called Constance Ragazzo. And she creates these really, really interesting, very realistic, but not deliberately realistic images of mainly women floating in water, like submerged, partly submerged. Some of them are really abstract. Some of them are just like the detail and the tones, and just her work is beautiful. Like it shimmers, and it's just it's absolutely gorgeous. But her question for you is: how important are limits and constraints to your output, so to your work, and are they a benefit or a hindrance?
That's a really great question. I think having limits and constraints are important because it allows you to kind of reach that next step in your creative process. Like, I don't necessarily believe this in fully, but you've got the beginner, you got the amateur, you got the semi-pro, then you got the professional, and I think putting certain limits and constraints on where you're at in the moment can help you get to where you want to be. Like, for example, like I don't like to spend more than about 10 to 20 minutes editing a photo. If I'm spending more than that, I feel like I'm kind of out of my league with what I'm trying to do in the moment, but at the same time, like I know that if I just come back to it later and maybe put an hour or so into it, it could be what defines me from being an amateur to like a professional. I think the limits that I put on myself are really important in my creative process because it allows me to not get burnt out, and it allows me to still be in love with what I'm creating. Because, the type of photos I take, I can edit them so many different ways. I can make them look moody, or I can make them look bright. I can make them look vintage and retro. I can make them look futuristic. It's like I have all these forks in the road I could take with how I want it to look. But right now, as I was saying, I'm really drawn into the moody scene. So I'm kind of keeping it that aesthetic because that's kind of how I'm feeling. And I think if I, the fact that I am limiting myself to that right now is allowing me to kind of grow in that community for now. And then, once I have, a lot of people that know me for that and see me as a credible, artist, I can like throw in different stuff every now and then. It's kind of like when a YouTuber that's only done one form of content their entire YouTube career, but then like does a vlog or something and switches it up. It's like it's good to break those limits and constraints eventually, but I think being comfortable with where you're at in the process is really important too. And then whenever you're ready, you can take that step and break out of that and have a whole new set of limits and constraints. It's like breaking through your creative ceiling. That's kind of how I interpret that question. Like, how do you break through your creative ceiling? And for me, I kind of stay comfortable in it for a little bit until I'm ready to be out of my comfort zone with it. And then I'll push on to something new. And I'm actually starting to do that now that I'm out here taking a lot more pictures in Texas. My photography is getting a little bit more on the retro kind of sunsetty kind of vibe again, rather than all the dark, moody stuff. And I'm enjoying that because I'm incorporating a little bit of both of it now. And my feed is starting to look a little bit more alive, not just like moody, but also like, artsy and vibey and stuff too. And I like all those kinds of words to kind of describe my art,
I would say it's looking more hopeful.
Yeah, definitely.
That's how I describe it. Because I feel like, don't get me wrong, like I love, as you are well aware, I love a moody image. I think they're amazing. But I think sometimes we can kind of sit in that space of unhappiness for a long period of time, or longer than we need to. And I think, it's actually, to be genuinely honest, it's actually something I've noticed a lot actually with people like Parse and people like I'm surrounded by, even people like JT Fox and Zaki Yanko, who predominantly do a lot of moodier stuff. That a lot of people's work nowadays, there is a nice change or a nice subtle shift to kind of images that are a little bit more kind of just a little more upbeat and a little bit more kind of celebratory in terms of where they're at in life, as opposed to being kind of too contemplative and too kind of unhappy or like moody, I guess.
Right.
There's definitely been, in my opinion, a shift slightly. especially with like JT Fox and Zaki Yanko. The stuff they're creating now is very different to what they used to create. And even Joji Brandon, like really recently, he created a few stuff that was very different to what he creates. I've really enjoyed seeing that. It's nice to see completely different sides of people, because it's too easy to get caught up in creating one image or one type of image, or getting boxed in for being known for one type of image. So I don't know. I think the fact that you're doing that and you're happy doing that, I think that's the best thing.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I love that perspective of it, and that's kind of something I'm pursuing actively too. It's like, you know, I since I do have so many interests and so many aesthetics that appeal to me, I like to create that as well, you know, not just, like you said, be boxed into one thing. You know, I don't want to just be the moody guy. I want to be Niko Evermore, you know.
So, do you have a question for the next person I interview?
Who's the next person that you will be interviewing?
I do not know yet. Well, I do know, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not.
Artist or photographer?
Artist.
Okay. So my question to them would be, how are the current events happening around the world influencing the type of art that's being created? And why would that influence you in the way that it is?
So how are the current events? That's a really good question. I feel like everybody has better questions than I have. So, does artistic freedom exist? And is there a fine line between morality and creative expression?
Oh yeah, artistic freedom is real. You can there's so many different ways it is too. Like when you're just getting into a different art that you haven't done before, and you like start taking for the first time that vulnerability and that like kind of that innocence you have with it, you know, not knowing the social game and the political and the financial game that's involved with all of it, just doing it because you were interested in it in the beginning, you know, like being a kid with it, a child with it. It's so that's so freeing. And then after you kind of go through all of the realities of it all, like, oh, you know, like camera gear is expensive, lenses are expensive, you know, getting people to commit to a photo shoot is a lot harder, you know, and you know, not comparing yourself to other creators, you know, like once you bust through all of that and you have a really peaceful, you know, experience about it all, then there's like another side of freedom to it that you can experience as the experienced person in the artistic, you know, endeavor. And then what was the second part of that about morality?
Yeah, so the second part was, is there a fine line between morality and creative expression?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there is. It's all about your intention, you know, whether your intention's going into what you're creating, you know, are your morals good? You know, there's definitely a lot of, you know, creepy examples I could bring up, but that's pretty obvious, you know, for sure. But yeah, it's all about the morals that you're going into it with, and like your intention. Not only what are you getting out of it, but what are you giving what service are you offering to the person that you're photographing or the subject you're photographing to, you know, like even if it's not a person, if it's a piece of nature, like I'm photographing this view because I want more people to maybe see this view for themselves someday, because it brought me a lot of peace, and maybe it will bring other people peace too, seeing it on a phone screen, or even just like doing some research and figuring out where it's at and going to it themselves, you know. So you know, there's a lot of like it's all about the intention that you go into it, and the creative expression part of it with and ties to morality. It's very like it's a really cliche answer, but just be a good fucking person, you know, like be passionate about what you're doing, try not to take advantage of people, express what you're feeling, you know, have the consent to express with people if you're collaborating with them, like get them excited to be a part of what you're trying to create too, you know, whether it's the model itself or the people viewing, you know, like your work, you know, like get them, you know, immersed in it. So
that's solid advice, that.
Yeah.
So what would your younger self think about your work?
Oh, my younger self would be like so just like bummed that I had to grow up. I mean, they're like, oh cool, you learned how to use a camera, but like, dang, can we go back to like
to the aesthetic of your pictures and stuff, please. Nah, I think my younger self would be really like would be really fascinated and proud about all the progress I've made and all of the artistic ways, like when I was a little kid, I only listened to like rock and roll music, but now I listen to like everything. It's changed my life so much to have so many different musical influences. When I was first starting off on photography, when I was like, in high school, like I would have never have guessed that I'd be taking the type of pictures that I'm taking today. And I've had the opportunities to photograph what I have before. I mean, I've done events, I've done, models and just, I've done photo meetups where I've met people that are really successful in the industry. And it's just so cool. I would have never thought that my younger version of myself would have like gotten to this part with it, but I'm really happy it has. And, I'm still kind of like my younger self is still very alive in me for sure. I got that Peter Pan syndrome big time.
That's so cool. So the very last question, double barrel question, which is what are you currently working on and where can people find more about you and your work?
Awesome. That's like I feel like I'm at the end of a Hot Ones interview. Because he always asks that at the very end too. Like he's like, what do you got going on with your life? So right now I am just kind of working on getting my tens of thousands of photos kind of organized and into appropriate albums, editing the things that I want to edit, and just kind of slowly putting stuff up on my Instagram. Just kind of focusing on that right now with everything else being so busy. But I've also started a few new projects. Well, one of them I started a while ago, but I'm taking a hiatus right now until I can have a little more free time and focus on it. But I started a magazine called Nightfall Magazine, and that's just basically going to be a cool little curated mood board where I feature other people's work that kind of makes me feel like what the word nightfall means. What does nightfall mean to me? It's kind of like, the hours of dusk and like nighttime kind of vibes. So, and that's just another way for me to give back to people that really inspire me and, help them get more traffic on their page if they're trying to build a business, or just get, appreciation that, I get on some of my pictures that really makes me feel like really proud to continue to do what I do. I also have another magazine that I'm working on called Blues Day. You and I are talking about that. Something a little more fun. Keeping both of these things kind of digital right now, but I have plans to maybe do some physical copies in the future, and maybe do some like artist panels like you were mentioning before. I think like just a way for me to give back to the community is really important to me now that I'm kind of more established as a creator myself. It's like, how can I'm really into building empires. I want the creative empire to flourish,
Yeah.
So aside from that, I'm just kind of focusing on making money right now so I can invest in some more tech that can make my photo process a lot more streamlined and a lot more enjoyable. So I'm kind of in this kind of lull period, but creatively brainstorming a lot of things, starting to get a website more on the front of my mind so I can like desperately get that made, because I really want the freedom of a website. Looking into getting some business cards, just kind of like turning my hobby into more of a profession now. That's kind of where I'm at. And got a few little projects on Instagram, like I was mentioning with the magazines. And then, other than that, I'm just kind of kicking it, enjoying my free time when I have it, trying to create when I can. And the best way you can find me right now is probably just going to be Instagram at the moment, because I don't have anything else yet. But we're getting there. We're making progress. I will have a website made by the end of this year. It's on my yearly goal to-do list to have my website up and running. And I already know you're going to want to help me out with that a bit. And I would love to utilize you for that for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Honestly, I'm more than happy to help. I just love having people. Like, I think that's really I've kind of reached a point where I've just realized like I just really want to help people. Like I messaged some artists actually yesterday, and I was like, because I was talking to them about content creation and reels and stuff, and I said to them, look, no, actually they posted on their Instagram, they were like, they're finding it very hard to balance content creation with creating art. And I messaged them on their reel. I was like, this is what I've like. That's sounding big-headed. Like after speaking to artists, this is what I've kind of discovered. And then I privately messaged them and said, look, I said, I'm no professional. So if you need help with reels, I said, give me a shout. I'll do whatever I can for you, because getting into kind of content creation for artists, that's something that I actually really want to get into as well. I think it'd be a really interesting avenue. And, the money side of it is a different matter, because I'd do it as like a pay what you want kind of service, because I'm not interested in it being like a career, but it's something that I really want to get into, just because I'm passionate about it. I think it's great. If artists don't have the time to do that, or they're not sure, because as I said to this guy, I was like, I said, people might not be tech savvy, or they might just not want to do it. That doesn't mean that they should miss out because of that. Like if other people there want to do that kind of stuff, then why not let them? I just do a lot of random stuff. So, it's cool, but I like helping people. I've always liked helping people. It's just part of my nature. And I feel like the art community really might need it more than others. So like, why not help people? Like it's the best thing I could do. It's the best thing I could do with my time.
No, I love that about you. That's why I'm really, drawn to you.
That's super sweet. Right. I'm going to say thank you very much, Niko. It's been an absolute pleasure for me, honestly. That concludes the second and final part of my conversation with photographer Niko Evermore. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or comments about it, please send me an email at theflyingfruitbowl@gmail.com, or please get in touch via social media sites such as Instagram and Twitter. The Flying Fruit Bowl podcast can now be found on a variety of sites such as Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. If you like the show, please consider rating, reviewing, sharing, or subscribing on any of these platforms to help spread the word. Also, please check out theflyingfruitbowl.co.uk for daily art inspiration and written interviews. And if you're a creative, please get in touch for a chance to be featured or interviewed. If you'd like to support the platform further, we now also have a Patreon page where tiers start from £1. For £1 a month, you can get rewards such as early access to interviews, behind the scenes footage, weekly curated YouTube videos, and the chance to ask interview questions on our next podcast. If monthly donations are not your thing, we also have a PayPal. The link to that should be in the show notes. Once again, thank you very much for listening to this episode of The Flying Fruit Bowl today. And until next time, folks, please stay safe.